Hi, welcome to video number 3 in the Quick Start video series for 90-second website builder. This is Greg Hughes. In this video, I want to talk to you about working with the text object. You know, most of your website is going to be made up of text and images. Of course, you'll have navigation and forms and video, but the majority of your website, when you think about it, really is about images and text, at least for most websites. And so the text tool is a really important tool you're going to want to know how to use. The good news, it's really easy to work with. Obviously, we are going to work with the text tool over here from the toolbox. I'm going to go grab the text tool, and to work with it, of course, you just click on it, and then you'll notice my cursor turns into sort of a cross. I'm going to click and drag, and as I drag, it doesn't matter how big I make this box because 90 seconds is going to start me off with some text that says double click to edit. So that's some starting text. It's also a bit of instruction on how to use the text object, because it's important to know there's a difference between working with the text object and working with the text that's inside the text object. So right now all I'm doing is moving it around, which I'm able to do. But if I want to obviously add my own text, and I do, I need to double click. And now you'll see I'm in more of an edit mode inside the text object. Here I can type or I can paste in text that I may want to use on my website. So I'm going to edit the text right now, and I could just simply type, of course. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in some text and work with that for our demonstration here. So let me go get some text. Okay, I went and copied some text to my clipboard, and now I'm going to paste it. So what I'm going to do is double click on here. I'm going to replace this, so I'll select over it, and I'm going to paste in some text. Control V gives me my paste. Okay, there's some text we can work with. Now, again, you'll notice I can move this text object around. Here I'm working with the object. To work with the actual text, I would double click, and now I can go in here and edit. You're going to see some underlining here. This red underlining is my spell checker. In my case, I installed the spell checking extension. That's not available in the trial version, but if you're using the paid version, you can install a spell checking extension, and you'll see that it's catching some words it doesn't quite recognize. But anyway, that's what the red lines are. Here's what I want you to know. When we're working with a text object, it's very important for you to know that you can stretch or shrink this object, and the text will, in fact, continually accommodate the screen. In other words, you'll always see the text. You can stretch it wide, or you can stretch it narrow. What you can't do is stretch it deep this way, because it'll always snap to the bottom line. Now, this may seem like a silly feature right now, but you'll find here in a few minutes how this is an extremely important feature for the text object. When it comes to making your text look its best on your website, depending on the other objects it's around, you're going to find this feature to be invaluable and very unique to 90-second website builder, by the way. So let me give you an example of why that would be important. In fact, let's do this. I'm going to move the text down to the white area of the website down here, down below my background. Let me go get an image. I'm going to use the image tool, drag a box, and go grab something like this. Okay, so here's an image right here. If I wanted this text to look nice as possible next to this image, I have a couple of options. Let's say I wanted to kind of match the height of this image. Well, being able to stretch it this way helps me do that. In fact, I could even bump it. Now, right now, it's behind this image. So I'm going to go up here to Arrange, bring to the front. There we go. So it's not behind the image anymore. And you can see I can put this text right up against this image. And I can stretch it this way so that it kind of fits better. See what I mean? So, you know, this is just a great tool. Let's say I wanted to wrap this text around this object. Well, what I could do is break this text into two groups. So let me copy this, paste it. So I've got it twice. What I'm going to do is get rid of this bottom section up here. I double click, and I've selected it, deleted that part, and then in this one I'm going to get rid of the top part. It's kind of a nice trick. So now I've just basically taken this and broken it into two text objects. Now see, I can put my text around the object differently. In fact, if I go like this, you can see I can increase the size of this text this way. It looks a little nicer against the hat. and put it like that. My text objects are a little bit more visually appealing if I can shape them, and 90-second website builder allows you to do just that. That's the reason for all of this stretching and sizing that we get to do with our text objects. Okay, so that should be pretty obvious. Let's go back up here to the top and let's work with this text as far as formatting goes. Again, you can see that I'm not editing text, I'm just moving the object. If I want to edit the text, I double click. Now I can go inside and select text. Now I don't have to edit all of the text. I can format just one character if I wanted to. But let's just select this section right here. And I could make just that phrase bold by going up here. I can increase the size, of course. These settings should all be pretty obvious. If I want to double click on a word to select it, I could do that. If I want to just select one character, I can do that. Let's take that character and I can change its color. I can also highlight words. There's highlight colors here. And of course there's bold, italic, etc. You'll notice I'm using the font Arial. It's a very common font for web design. And when I look at the fonts, this may surprise you. And a lot of people ask, hey, where are all my fonts? This is only a few. Well, actually, 90-second website builder is helping you in a very important way. When you build a website, it's important to use web-friendly fonts. And so what the software does is it locates all of the fonts on your system that are web-friendly. And I happen to have these fonts on my system, and these happen to be the ones that are website friendly. In other words, these are the ones that will look fine on anybody's computer. If I choose to use Tahoma, then other people will have these fonts or a reasonable facsimile of them so that they'll see the font on the website the way I want them to. You have to remember, when people look at a website, the fonts they're looking at are the fonts from their own computer. So that's why you want to use fonts that are universal. Now, if you really want to display your other non-web safe fonts, the software lets you do that and lets you find the font, all of the fonts that are on your computer. But it's really not recommended because you want to build your website with web-friendly fonts. Now, if you were to use these fonts as an image, that's different. You can do that. But we're not. We're using them as text. So I'm using Arial. I like that one. It's web safe, and so we'll stay with that. But that's why the font list looks limited. It's because it's helping you be web friendly, and that's really important. Let me show you another trick using text with a tool we call the Style Manager. In fact, if you go up to the Format menu, you'll see there's a feature called Styles, and it brings up the Style Manager. What the Style Manager allows you to do is it allows you to create sort of a preset or a favorite setting for your font. It's under the general styles that we're going to click the add button, and I'm going to add a style. I'm going to create a style that I'm going to name, let's call it Greg's Style. Okay, so this would be my favorite style for font. In other words, here I can design what I want a particular style of a font to look like. So I can pre-create all of my settings for my font. So let's say I want a font style that's always going to be bold, so we'll make that true. And I want to always use, let's say Arial black for this one. And I can even change the letter spacing and the line height, and I can have it be strikeout or all kinds of things. Underline. I want the text color to always be, let's just say, this kind of red. And you can see here's an example of the style I'm creating. If I want it to be underlined, all of these things I can set for my particular favorite style. Okay, now I will save this, and now I have a style called Greg's. So let's click OK to go out of that. Now, when I'm writing my text and I decide I want to change a particular style, let's say I want to change the style, instead of going up here and setting all of that, I can just go to the Style Manager. And there's a couple ways to do it. I can go back up here to Format and go to the Style Manager, or I can right click and go down to the Style and pick the style that I want. And there it is in the list. And now what I've selected is set to my favorite style. So the Style Manager is just a way for you to create preset styles for your text. Style Manager works with other things besides the text object we'll talk about in later videos, such as hyperlinks and other things. But for now, just know that you can create as many custom styles as you want to and save them in the Style Manager. And then it's really easy to apply that style to the text you're working with. Before we go, let me show you a couple of other things that happen with text. There are some common errors people make when they're working with text. One of them is, as you're typing your text, like I said before, you'll notice that you can't stretch the text box this way. You can stretch it this way. The text always snaps to the bottom line of the text object. However, if you put a blank space at the end of that, it will keep going because the software sees a blank line as legitimate text. Well, this can be good and it can be bad. Sometimes people will forget they have lines there. And look, you'll see that the text object actually is much bigger than it needs to be. Why is that a problem? Well, because if I have a text object with all of these line spaces that maybe I forgot about, and maybe I take this object and I accidentally set it on top of something like, let's say, a button that needs to be a link, I could easily block that button with this text object without even knowing it. So if I had an image here that was supposed to be a link, and the user's trying to link on it, they can't get to it because it's actually being blocked by this invisible object. So it's important to remember that you don't really need to take up this extra space. Make sure that you don't have extra line spaces that you don't need. Another mistake that people will make sometimes is if they don't want this text object anymore, they'll select the text and delete the text by hitting backspace, and thereby think that they're eliminating the text object. Well, even though you can't see it, it's actually there because I didn't remove the text object. All I removed was the text inside that object. I'll show you what I mean. I've got my pointer right now, which allows me to select items on the screen. So I'm going to draw this box of selection. Watch. See, there actually is a text object on there. You just can't see it because it's empty. If I really don't want that, it's better to just delete the object, not the text itself. So to delete the object, I select it and then hit delete. That way you kind of keep your website clean. You don't have a lot of stray objects that may be getting in the way, or pretty soon it'll build up and you'll have extra code behind the scenes that you really don't need. And you want your website to be as clean and fast loading as possible. Your text is really an important part of your website because when it comes to ranking in Google and your search engine optimization, your text is where most of your keyword content is going to be stored. Now, of course, there's some other places you can have keywords for those of you that want to understand search engine optimization more. But you also know that the content of your website, that is the information that's in your text, is the part that Google really, really looks at. And so it's important to know how to work with text and how to balance your text, certainly as you're writing your copy or the information on your website. So play with the text tool. You'll see that it does a lot of great things. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And the idea that you can move it around on the web page is what makes this website software so unique. So in the next video, we'll talk more about working with some other objects in your website as you work with 90 Second Website Builder.